Hey guys, and welcome to the sixth video in our tutorial. Today we'll be looking at looping, and Python basically provides two type of loops, the while loop and the for loop. So we'll go ahead and look at the while loop. The syntax for the while loop is while and your expression and then your suite. Okay, so it's simple as that. And it also comes with the optional else statement. Okay, similar to what we did with the if statement in the previous lesson. So let's go again and let's go through some examples of this. Let's say, for example, we have variable num equal 1, and we say while num is less than or equal to 10, we will print the value of num. And we'll keep increasing num by 1. And let's run this and see what happens. So as you can see, it prints out from 1 to 10. So basically we say, alright, while num is less than 10, and num in this, when we start off, is 1. So 1 is less than 10, so it prints 1. Then it adds 1 to num, which makes it 2. And then 2 is still less than 10, so it prints 2, and so forth until num now equals 11, and it no longer meets this condition, so it stops. Alright, so that's pretty much it with the while loop. Now the while loop can also have a break statement, so let's look at an example of that. Say if, for example, we have a goal and our goal is 15, and we start at 1. So we say while true, and while true would make this while loop go on forever, and this can sometimes lead to your computer running out of memory. So in a while loop, it's always practical to have some type of break statement, something that takes you out of the loop. So in our case, we'll say, alright, we'll print start, and again we start at 1, and then we'll say if start equal to goal, then we'll simply break. So that'll make us break out of the loop. And if start equal goal, we break. But if not, we'll continue to add 1 to start. Let's say plus equal 1. Alright, let's see if this works. Alright, so as you can see, we count from 1 to 15, which makes sense. So similar to what we did already, we go ahead, we see if the statement is still true, and when it reaches, when start, which is this, equals to 15, we see that it matches our goal of 15, and we break out of the loop. If we didn't have this break statement here, this will count forever, and we could easily reach 4 million in a couple of seconds, to show you how fast it will loop through. So that's the beauty of a break condition. Right? So we'll also look at a while loop to loop through a list. So let's say, for example, we have a list of items, and we want to find a certain item. And if we find that item, our program should alert us of that, but if we don't find that item, our program should also let us know that the item is not there. So let's say we have a list of available items, and let's put in some items here. So as you can see, this something like this would be perfect for like a inventory program where you want to check if you have something in inventory. So say in our case we want to find a pen. That's what we want, right? So let's write a program to see if we can find that pen. So we're going to initialize I to 0, and we're going to use this I to basically iterate over this list. So let's show you. So while I is less than the length of available items, so this will basically go through until it meets the amount that's in this list. So in our case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So basically this loop would run 6 times. So if available items equal our item, then we would like to print that we found the item. So found, and then we'll just concatenate that with the name of the item. Alright, and once we find the item, we wouldn't want Python to keep going because we already found the item. So we simply break from it. If we did not find the item in that loop, we'll simply want to increase the value of I. And if Python goes through this list the 6 times and did not find an item, then we want it to tell us that it did not find it. So in our case, we'll print name of the item, and we'll say not found. Okay, and let's run this and see what it says. So you see it says pen not found, and that's because it came to our else statement where it did not meet any of the condition here. So when it finishes, it comes to the else statement. So let's say we're looking for something that's actually there, like a pencil, and we go ahead and we run this. Oh, it says pencil not found. Okay, let's see why it said that. I'm sure this is spelled the right way. Hold on, let's look. Oh, that's why. Because we missed out something here. So that's the thing with programming. Always something being left out. Alright. So it will loop through each item of the list. So this is important. So we'll say since we start from 0, it will check this. If it did not find it, it will increase I. So I is now 1. It will check this, check if it equals the item, and so forth. So let's go back to pen and see if it still works. You still see that it says pen not found. But if we say pencil and we do that, you see it said found pencil. So that's basically how we can use the while loop to go through a list. Right? The next loop that Python provides is the for loop. So unlike the while loop, where the loop runs until a condition inside the loop, which is the suite, becomes false, and that's when you break out of the loop. With a for loop, you can pretty much specify the amount of time you want that loop to run from the get-go. So for example, the for loop, the syntax for the for loop is basically for variable in iterable. Let's spell that right. you have your suite, and again you have the optional else statement. All right, so let's run through a quick one here. So for letter in, and then we'll use some vowels. We'll just want to print each letter, something simple like that. And you see that it lists out all the letters in this string. All right, we can also use a for loop to go through a list. So let's say list equal, then let's use a list of names. Black. Okay, so that's our list. And then we'll just print out each item in this list. So something similar to what we did above or earlier. So names in list, and then we'll print the names. And you see that it prints all the names that are in the list. We can also go through items in a dictionary. So for example, we have, let's use, let's have a dictionary with the average minimum and maximum temperatures in some of the countries in the Caribbean. All right, so let's create a dictionary, and remember that the dictionary is the open and closing curly braces. And then let's start off with Jamaica, and the average 73.89. So this is in Fahrenheit. So this is the minimum temperature average in Jamaica and the maximum of the same. And we'll say Bahamas, and Bahamas is 69.84. And we'll use Saint Martin, which is 77.87. Next one we'll use Dominica, and Dominica is 84 and 85. As you see, we're coming pretty much close to this part of the screen. So because this is, we're in brackets, then we can simply come down here and continue. Just let's remember to put our comma. We can pretty much continue right here. So Trinidad, and we'll say Trinidad is 72 and 89. Okay, so these are actual temperatures that are pulled from a website. So these are really the average minimum and maximum on these islands. Okay, so we'll basically go through this list, and what we're going to do is print the key and the value attached to that key. So we'll say for key, and remember this key can be any variable. So any variable you can use. So, but we'll just use key right here. So in temps, and we'll say print the key and print the value attached to that key. Okay, and let's see what happens here. So you see that it prints Jamaica and all the other countries, and it has the minimum and the maximum there. We can also use the for loop to modify a list. So we can add items, we can take items from the list. In this example, I'll just show you how to delete an item from this list. So almost the same thing, but then we'll make this a copy of the list. The reason why we want to make it a copy, this reason why we want to make this a copy is because we are going through a list and we're deleting items. So if we delete an item in the suite and it comes back to the for loop and the for loop sees that the iteratable change, it's gonna push out an error and your code will just break. So we'll just create a copy of this list and use that to iterate through the list. So we'll say, for example, we want to delete Bahamas because we no longer want to take temperatures for Bahamas. We'll say if key equal Bahamas, then we'll simply delete that key, and we'll just go ahead and print the others just to show that it was deleted. Alright, so cross our finger and run this code, and we'll see that it outputs everything except for Bahamas. So yes, it did work. Alright, so let's go ahead and make this formatting a little more human readable. So for example, we're going through this right here, but we're seeing Jamaica 7389. Someone using your program would say, what the hell is 73 and 89? So what we'd want to do is to output this in a way that the user, the person using your program, knows what this information is saying. So for example, we would need to copy this. We can say print, and remember we used string formatting earlier. We can say, let's leave a string here, common s, and we can say minimum, and minimum if. So that would say Fahrenheit, or should it be a capital F? Yeah, capital F. And then we'll say maximum. Okay, and then we will tell Python what we're placing in those placeholders. So the first one, we want to use the key. Then we want to use the key, but the value at position 0. And the second one should be the position at 1. Okay, so this will make it more user friendly so the person know that we're actually talking about the minimum and the maximum temperature. So let's cross our finger and run this, and you should see that it says Jamaica, the minimum is 73 Fahrenheit and the maximum 89. So that's how you would use data from a list, but you will put it in a way that the person using your program knows what you're talking about. Alright, so let's look at some other features of the for loop. The other one is using a range to basically generate numbers from a for loop. So simply, it's for, we're going to use x in this case, for x in range 10. It's in range 10, and we'll just print x, just to show you what happened. All right, so as you can see, this prints 0 up to 9. But why would it do that since we put 10 here? So the range method, it takes a, well, what it takes a optional start, which if you don't put in a start, then it actually defaults to 0. Then it takes a stop. So this is the last item. The start is what it starts from, so it includes this. So if you put a 1 here, you'll see that this starts from A1. The stop, it goes up to, but not including the stop value. So as you can see, it stops at 9 instead of 10. Then we go through what you call the step. So this is the step. So if you don't include a step, it steps up by 1. So as you see, it counts from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But if we should put in, say, a step or 2, then you see that it goes up by 2 and 3 and so forth. So that's how it is. But really, you can just put in a stop. So the value of your stop, so whether it's 5, and if you print that, you see it goes from 0 to 4. And if you put a 1 here for the start, we'll see that it starts from 1, but it goes up to 4. So just remember that it includes the start and it goes up to, but not including the stop. So there are some things that we can do with this range here. So we can say, for example, let's use back 10, and we can basically print some multiples of 3. So we can say if x 3 print x. So basically what we are doing here is to use the modulus symbol here, which is basically brings back the remainder of this calculation right here. So in our case, we're saying if this accounts to anything but 0, remember that we're saying if true. So if this accounts to anything but 0, we continue, because we just want to bring things that has a remainder of 0 when we divide it by 3, since we want the multiple of 3. So in our case, if we run this, we should see that it only brings back the multiple of 3. And if we should change this to 2, same thing. You see that it actually brings back the multiple of 2. Right, so that's how we use the continue. It's similar to the break. The only thing with the break is that once you reach the break comes out of the loop completely, but the continue simply skips it. So if it's not divisible by 2 or completely divisible by 2, it simply skips it and continues the loop. So that's the beauty of the continue. Alright, we can also use the range and the for loop to create a list. So we can say we want to find the multiples of 10. So let's create an empty list. And then we'll say for x in range. And let's go up to 100. And we say if not x and then we'll just simply append x to the list. And then at the end of all this, we just want to print out the value of the list. Alright, so we forgot our colon. yeah, forgot our colon there. And let's run this, see what happens. So as you can see, it goes 0, 10, 20, 30 up to 90. So it's a multiple of tens, which we defined here. So we say if not x, and then we use the modulus sign again, and 10, then we want to append that number to the list. So the not here is saying that if it's not true. So basically we're saying if this equals 0, because remember it should be completely divisible by that number. Alright? So that's how we use that create a list. And since we're at list generation, I want to show you a cool function in Python. It's basically a list comprehension. So what we just did, we can practically do that in one line. So before we took a couple lines to create a list with multiples of 10, we can do that in one shot. So let's look at that. So equal, and then we'll still use the square brackets, but we'll say x for x in a range of 100, and then we'll go ahead and say if not x, and then we use the modulus symbol, and we end it there. So what we'll do at the end of this is just to print that list item or that list object and see what we get. Alright, so if we should run this, you see that we get back the same 10, 20, 30 up to 90 with just one line of code. So this is just an advanced feature in Python. It's not always used, but I just want to show you it, so if you see it somewhere else, you won't be totally confused. There's another way of doing this. It's called a generator. So I'll just show you that real quick. It's basically the same thing that we just did. So we can practically just take back this code here, copy it, and let's say we have tens equal. But the only thing with the generator is that we use the parentheses. So same thing, but what you would notice if we call tens is that this don't generate a list. It generates an object that we can basically iterate through. So for example, if we run this, you see that it creates an object. But if you want to go through that object, we can simply say for x in tens, and then we can print x. And if you run that, you should see that it prints out all the items in this object. Alright, so that is basically it in regards to looping in Python. Again, these two last things I just showed you, they're basically some more advanced way of creating lists in Python. They're not necessarily used, and we might come across it later in the series. But again, I just want to know that if you see it somewhere else, you're not totally confused. So I hope you learned a lot today. It was quite a lot, so go ahead and again practice this, because the if statement and the looping is something that almost every single program uses. So it's best to be as comfortable with this part as possible. So the next lesson will be going through functions. So I will see you in the next video. So thanks for watching, and bye.